What's up, man? What's up, woman? What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? Let's get this camera a little bit straighter here. As usual, starting this video, I don't have any plan in mind as to how I'm going to tackle it. I know for a lot of people that may seem surprising. I know that a lot of the videos out there and people who make videos, they have to edit them down for time, and I realize that I don't, and that they become long, and that I also don't edit what I say. So you have to realize that these are just the words coming from the mind of one man with one brain. My neurons are firing, my synapses are sputtering out their electrons, and whatever's happening in my body is happening, and it's creating a consciousness, or perhaps conducting a consciousness from elsewhere. I won't debate that. I won't debate the religious nor the atheistic views of life. I've learned that to have a personally true view, fair view of life, you have to do it within yourself, without trying to prove to anyone. There's nothing wrong with discussing what you believe or how you feel, but if anything you believe is taken on faith, then you can't expect others to believe it. Now, it doesn't mean that I believe there's anything wrong with faith. It's just a matter of, are you rational? Are you irrational? Are you religious? Are you not religious? Are you a skeptic, or are you a believer? In many different fields. In fact, one of the things I really wanted to mention in a video I was going to make here was skepticos. The idea of being a skeptic. The skeptical isn't just something that's a new word. The skeptics were an actual group of people. And more often than not, the word skeptic often refers to those who are skeptical of religious beliefs. And especially dogmatic religious beliefs or beliefs on faith. Now, I like to distinguish the difference between religion and faith, because religion is not faith. Religion is any set of principles or beliefs held which tend to be more ritualistic or systematic way of living. Your religion can merely be going out and meditating in the woods. And though we associate religion with a group effort these days, it comes down to semantics, wordplay. But generally, when a person says they're religious, they usually believe in a particular religion these days. So, and I have nothing against that, unless you're putting dinosaurs on Noah's Ark and trying to divert public funds for schooling into teaching creationism. This is where people get frustrated with religion, with Christianity. They did build $100 million, I think it was $100 million to build this replica of Noah's Ark. I think it was in Texas or somewhere, and they put this, dinosaurs in there, and they talk about how dinosaurs walked with man, and they say that biology is evolutionary biology is the enemy of religion. And there's people who are a huge group where they really believe this, this is the only prop I actually brought out here. I just grabbed it off the shelf. I have biology and then microbiology, an introduction. And I bought this cheap on at Goodwill. These books are phenomenal, but what I wanted to say about it was not to flip through it or look at anything in it in particular, but rather just to say, look at this. We developed a language, many languages. And then over time and research, we were able to bring our discoveries into language form and then write these formulas, which is really all language is a formula for understanding. And we can look at how viruses operate. We can look at how cells divide. All these things that we didn't have the ability to see a couple hundred years ago. And most of it not even 50 years ago. And it's amazing how far we've come and how resistant religion is to the new discoveries by saying that either you believe in evolution or you believe the earth is 6,000 years old. It's one way or the other, and there's no middle ground. And I believe that it's truly devastating to think that way. But only to the people who really have a vested interest in proving otherwise. And so let me try to explain where I'm coming from, because this isn't about religion or atheism or anything like that. This is about what should we be doing with our lives and what really matters. From a religious perspective, if you live your whole life thinking that you're going to have a wonderful afterlife in heaven and see your loved ones, and then you die a happy person and you've lived a good life and been kind, is there anything wrong with that? Well, if you've harmed none other, I see nothing wrong with that. However, if you become a member of an organization that oppresses truth, or truth as science sees it, that could be a problem. But the question also becomes, where is science bringing us? Well, it's giving us longer lives. It's helping us to acquire many different medicines that do help us, while at the same time providing many pharmaceuticals that are killing us at the same time. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about scientists who are truly working and finding these miraculous, amazing ways for us to live longer. You know, heart transplants, you know, pacemakers. You can't deny that these things are life-saving. They're amazing. And we are becoming transhumanists, if you will, and becoming cyborgs of a sort. And it will not be more than a couple more decades before they're injecting nanobots into our bloodstream to help repair damaged tissue or destroy cancer cells. Now, this is already happening, you know. It's like they say, any technology we have, they're actually 20 to 30 years ahead of that. They're just, you know, that's what's on the market. And this is generally true. There are some amazing futuristic, you know, frontiers. And here's a question. The ultimate frontier is, who are we? And what is consciousness? And the idea is, if consciousness is really quantum, as many people believe, if it really lies within a ones and zeros realm where it can be programmed into a computer, the question is, can you program your consciousness and plug it into a robot and live forever? You know, the only reason we die, I believe, is because our chromosomes, the ends get shorter and shorter. I think they're called tellulars or something like that, whatever it is. And as they shorten, eventually they can't reproduce anymore, and, you know, we get older and die. It's as if our cells are programmed to die. And once we can stop that programming, you know, is it right to live forever? Is it right to to live for even 1,000 years, you know, if it's possible? I guess it comes down to questions of values and what we value out of life. I've thought a lot about this, the length of a human life, because when I was younger, I say in my early 30s, I went through kind of a panic attack mode thinking about death. I realized I'm in my 30s now. I'm at least a third of the way through my life, maybe a quarter, depending on how long life is. You know, I know that one day I'm going to die, I'm going to lose my consciousness. And some mornings I even wake up and that's on my mind. I think, wow, you know, being alive, I'm alive, it's amazing. The problem is you don't want to avoid thinking about it, you want to avoid fearing it. And the only way to avoid fearing it is to ask yourself, what is life really about? And then you start to realize that living life is about experiences. It's about that moment with your family, or that moment at the concert, or reading a book, or learning something new. Those are the things that make our life worth living. And back to where I was going with the science thing, it's like, how much can you learn and what good is it really going to do humanity if everyone just dies anyway? You know, what is the point of it all? And that becomes a defeatist attitude, or what you might call nihilism, which is the belief that nothing matters, that everything's just by chance and fuck it all. And that type of thinking goes nowhere, because even if it's true, it ultimately leaves you having to decide what your life is worth, not allowing society to say, oh well, life doesn't matter. You know, it's an internal struggle. I can put it a little simpler by saying that the people in life who I've seen who are trying to prove themselves too much seem to be the unhappiest. And this comes from both sides, the extremes. Extremely religious folks who can't handle people not believing what they believe, and extremely atheist folks say who cannot handle that other people believe in religion. People won't rest till either everyone's religious or all religion is abolished. You're never going to get your way, and even in your lifetime. And it's kind of like working towards a cause. A lot of people would say, like, having pride for people who fought and died for their country. Think about that for a minute. Is that really something to be proud of? Or is that something to be scoffed at? That a person is willing to die for their political leaders. Now, in their mind, they're dying for the freedom of their fellow, Americans, let's say. And and since society has a stigma on talking bad about war or soldiers, then a person who says, well, I fought for your freedom, and you say, well, you were dumb enough to go to war and fight for your masters. And that would be offensive, and even me saying that probably offends someone out there, a soldier or a family member of a soldier, because we really want to believe that we're fighting for the right things. We do. We want to believe that our causes are just. But when it comes to American wars, any of the recent American wars, they're not justified. Going into Iraq was not justified. Going into Afghanistan, all the little coups that we have in South America and the Middle East, everywhere, they're not justified. And so I'm using that as an example of how even if a person finds they've been disillusioned, they'll justify it by saying, well, it's for the greater good. It's for everyone's freedom. And that's how many Christians would justify, say, some of their actions in the past, like, the Crusades, by killing a few, we're saving many type of attitude. And the question becomes, what right do you have as an individual to decide what God's Word really is? And then they resort back to the Bible, the book. And, I haven't been very fond of Christianity for a long, for any number of time, any number of years in my life. I've always been opposed to it. I became more tolerant in recent years because I understand how people think, but less tolerant whenever somebody comes and confronts me and tells me that, I'm somehow inferior. Because I'll be honest, out of all the people who have insulted me, cast stones, called me names, tried to tear me down, I'd say at least 80% of them have been Christians on YouTube or elsewhere. The people who have really told me off, really called me names, the ones who have really used foul language and actually, told me I'm going to hell and I'm a piece of shit and I'm probably a rapist or murderer, they've all claimed to be Christians. And it taught me something. It taught me that people who cannot convince you that they're right, and it doesn't come right outright, it's usually after I say, I appreciate that you believe what you believe, but I don't. And they get very offended, and they get very bothered by that. And, it's something to learn. For me, it's just psychology. It's learning about people. If their beliefs are confronted or questioned, especially in today's world, it's hard to understand that what you've been taught all your life is a lie, and that it's not true. I mean, it absolutely amazes me in today's world that as many people truly believe that Jesus is the only path to redemption. And that doesn't blow my mind because I understand that people learn from each other. That no person is born and Jesus comes to them and says, I am your Savior. Because, the name Jesus didn't even exist in the time of Jesus' life. I could go on and on about the details, but I don't want to offend anyone or bother with attacking religion here. I'm just saying that it's always been an issue. Everybody wants to believe that they're right, but they've always been told what to believe. Most Christians have learned about Christianity from others. And so here's my belief, is that any religion that's worth learning, there are things that can be taught to one another that can actually help us. My belief would be that most of that would be Eastern mysticism, some Buddhist principles, Tao Te Ching, things like that. But also, Western and Eastern religion, which is microbiology, science, understanding how the body works. Because if you understand how the body and the mind work, and then you understand how nature wants to work, then you can learn how to reconcile the two without questioning whether something's coming from your addictive personality or whether you're really being pulled, let's say, towards a certain end. Knowing more about yourself and about your world helps you to live a better life, a richer life. And that's why I think philosophy is king. Philosophy comes first, because it doesn't include any particular belief system. It's just the love of wisdom, philosophia, love of wisdom. And wisdom really can help you along your way. It's just that you will find yourself more and more lonely as you separate yourself from your peers by knowledge and subjects and interests. You know, there are plenty of people who can be just as endowed as you with information, but they may be on a different informational plane. So it's really hard to discuss things with people. That's why I believe that a general understanding of the life around us is much better. So anyway, my ramble's over. I'll talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful day. Peace. All that shit. Talk to y'all soon.